Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and I just wanted to talk to you for a few minutes about change in narcissistic relationships. One of the hottest topics and the most popular thing that people ask about regarding narcissistic relationships is change. How do narcissists change? Can narcissists change? How do I change? So I thought we could talk about it for a few minutes. Now, most of the time, people are asking if narcissists can change, and of course, the answer is no. There are a few reasons for that. One of them is that manipulation as a survival strategy works, which is why it's so common among all living things. When you tell someone that they should stop doing something that they feel works for them, that's usually not going to be received very well. It's often received as a threat to their survival, and it's reacted to as one. We see manipulation throughout the animal kingdom and even in plants, such as the pitcher plant. Regardless of whether it's fair or not, it is a very successful survival strategy. It prolongs life, which is the only thing required of a survival strategy. What the quality of that life might be when utilizing this strategy is not important, and it's not considered except by human beings who are watching other human beings utilize manipulation as a survival skill. They see that this way of surviving is extremely problematic, that it's hurtful, both to the person using it and to the people around them. To a person in this mindset, though, the ends justify the means. Survival is the only focus and it's the only goal. This way of surviving is what they've learned and they believe that it works for them. Indeed, it may be the only survival skill set they even have. They've been using it every minute of every hour, of every day, of every year that they have been alive. Trying to convince them to do something different that might not even work is a little bit like saying they should stop breathing the way that they always have. To them, this is not only threatening, it's ridiculous. There is no other way to breathe. This is a person who lives a very different life than you do. They see things very, very differently. The logic and evidence-based arguments that you would use with someone else, they're not going to work with them. They just don't see things that way, and they're not going to suddenly be able to or want to or try to just because somebody else wants them to or thinks that they should. The narcissist in your life has undoubtedly made many impassioned arguments for why they can't change, won't change, don't want to change, don't need to change. It's time to believe them. Listen to what they're actually saying, instead of arguing back or advocating for whatever you're trying to say or defending yourself. Listen to what they're saying, and you will find that you're being told the same thing over and over and over and over, which is, I'm not going to do that. It's time to stop trying to convince narcissists that what you're asking for is not too much, because for them it is. Asking for anything is too much for somebody who has nothing to give. They really don't have the ability to understand that you have feelings or that you matter. There's no way to change that. There's no way for them to understand. They don't have anything to give you. They really are very much like a young child who doesn't understand that their mother is tired or sick or deserves any consideration whatsoever. If you can understand the way that infants and toddlers experience their parents, you can understand the way narcissistic personalities view other people. Very small children do not understand their caregivers as individual and separate people who exist outside of the relationship with them. A child's experience of a parent is, you exist because I exist. They view themselves as the center of not just the caregiver's world, but of the world itself. Their side of any attachment or relationship is dependence only. The entire burden and responsibility, not just for the relationship, but for the child, is on the caregiver. This is the same relationship that pathologically narcissistic adults have with other people. They are not capable of or interested in anything else. Now, sometimes people resist this characterization of narcissists and psychopaths. The truth is, though, it's actually not uncommon at all for children to be manipulative and even cruel until they mature. Children who do not mature out of this behavior to learn appropriate ways to get their needs met, deal with their feelings, or regulate their emotions become adults who still do this. People who are pathologically narcissistic are so arrested in this area that they have not even matured into the basic understanding of other people as separate and individual human beings who have feelings and needs. And by now, they're not only unable to do so, they would see no reason why that's necessary. It's like trying to teach somebody to spin a spider web. Not only can they not do that, what is the reason you would use to convince them that this is something they need to learn? It's important to understand that this doesn't mean they have the intellectual capabilities of children or that they're unable to know right from wrong. Neither of those things are true. Therefore, nothing about this excuses their behavior. In order to be held responsible for behavior, one needs only to possess the knowledge that their behavior is wrong. They may not understand how or why it's wrong, then they may not care, but they do understand it's something they're not supposed to do. That's all that's required in order for people to be held responsible for their behavior. As an aside, it's always interesting to me how people resist this characterization of narcissistic personalities. I don't really know how someone can look at these things and not see this is exactly how they function. Some people may see it, I guess, as minimizing the severity of the disorder. I really don't see how that is either. If you're saying that someone essentially has the emotional coping, processing, and regulation skills of an infant, you're stating that they have a pretty catastrophic dysfunction. Now, perhaps they might feel that this type of characterization implies that this person is not dangerous. That is a mischaracterization if so. This level of dysfunction in an adult body with adult intellectual capabilities is never not dangerous. Having the emotional capabilities of a very small child does not make somebody not dangerous. Quite the opposite, in fact. Now, if narcissists cannot change, if they will not change, if they do not change, what changes in the relationship? What can change in the relationship? Well, we can. As you may have heard me say many times, the real battle in narcissistic relationships is not with the narcissist. It is with yourself. This is really, really important to understand. The narcissist has endeavored to create the same ego trauma in you that they themselves are carrying around. This is where your battle lies. Ego trauma is defined in this context as attacks on your identity and your sense of self, like who you believe yourself to be. Ego trauma usually figures pretty significantly in relationships with narcissists and other toxic personalities. Part of the work we need to do for healing often includes ego work to learn to define ourselves for ourselves, rather than through the internalized opinions and perceptions of other people. Until we do, the reckless and spiteful and delusional perceptions of somebody like a narcissist can result in extreme damage to people. This is often a key component of toxic relationships. Ego trauma is a key component of toxic relationships. One or both of the people involved are trying to experience and define themselves through the opinions of the other person. They try to control, influence, or change this when it doesn't line up with what they would like to believe about themselves, and they may not feel okay if they can't do that. You know, people need to think a certain way about me. They need to feel a certain way about me before I can feel okay about me. For example, people may find themselves always trying to prove to a partner or to a family member that they're a good person, that they have good intentions. This is usually an attempt to prove worthiness. so that they can be loved and valued. If the partner or the family member does not give this validation, people can find themselves in an unhealthy cycle of giving and sacrificing in the attempt to somehow win this validation that has become so important. This can result in feeling trapped in toxic relationships and situations for years. But worth is not defined by perception of value. If a blind man finds a $100 bill on the ground, but mistakenly believes that it's only a $1 bill, this has absolutely no effect on the actual value of the bill. It dictates how he treats the bill, and that's it. When we can learn to define ourselves for ourselves, we no longer have to become ensnared in these toxic cycles of trying to change or control people's opinions and prove that we are worthy. We understand that the opinions of others are simply that, an opinion. It could be hurtful, it could be flattering, it could be misinformed, it can be anything, but it doesn't define us. Don't attach too much importance to the opinions of other people. Someone believing you are a millionaire does not make you one. Someone believing you're a murderer doesn't make you one. Someone believing that you're a frog or a dog or a cat, right? It doesn't make you one. Anything else? Opinions are like dandelions, right? They pop up everywhere. Learn to see them for what they are, a reflection of the other person and how they look at things, and let them go. Because even the opinions of loved ones do not define you ever. So I hope that clears a few things up for you. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a beautiful day.